Another hot day exercise. Digger's actually had his workout for today, and he did a little bit of Liberty work, just lunging, and he had tons of energy. So just because we're hot and a little bit sluggish doesn't mean your horse is. So, it's a good idea just to do something with them daily that kind of stimulates their education and gets them kind of bonding and learning with you. So we thought, how about we teach you guys how to get your horse to lower their head to pressure at the pole. So for me, I like all my horses lowering their head when I put pressure on the pole. That just makes them pleasant to be around. That way they would lower their head when you put the bridle on, they lower their head when you put the halter on, they lower your head when you take the halter off. To me, that's just makes it easy for them to handle, and that way if I have somebody that's less educated or maybe even a youth, then they can still handle this horse without a lot of struggling. The method that we use to teach our horses to drop their head to pressure is we put one hand on each side of the forelock. Thank you, Bubby. And there's little pressure points right there. And that teaches you, we put a little pressure there, wait for the horse to drop his head, and then we take the pressure away. So pretty simple. You can do this every time you halter your horse, every time you take the halter off your horse. And in a week, your horse is going to be dropping his head as much as you want him to. So just practice it daily for, let's say the first day, 3 minutes. And then after that, they've learned it pretty well. You might practice it 2 or 3 times each time you halter, 2 or 3 times when you take the halter off. Pretty soon you're just practicing it once a day. When you put the halter on, when you're putting the halter off, taking the halter off. So what you're going to do is put one hand on each side of the forelock here, right there at the pole. And I put a little bit of pressure, and I just wait for my horse to drop his head in some fashion. And horses naturally go against pressure, so don't be surprised if he comes up with the pressure. If he does, you just keep the same pressure you had. You don't have to get a whole lot harder, and just wait for him to drop or relax in some fashion. So there was a little bit of relaxation, so we're going to take it. Good job. We're going to try that again. He got distracted looking at the dog. There we go. So even though he got distracted looking at the dog, I didn't take the pressure away until he dropped his head. Good job. And so we don't use distraction as an excuse at any point in our horse training. We teach them, like, don't worry about that. Come back to me. So we're going to try it again. We're going to wait for him to stop looking at the dog. And he lowered his head. And then notice how my hand went totally away. It didn't follow his head down, because if you do that, you're probably going to keep the pressure on and not release at the right point. So as soon as he does it, I take my hand up here like this. Let's try it again. Good job. So as soon as he does it, we'll reward him. And it's going to come back up. There's a lot of things outside happening right now, and he's going to want to look at them, but that's okay, because every time it comes back up, we get another opportunity to teach him again. Good. Just a little bit. It wasn't much, but it was a try. Looking at stuff behind him. Good job. That was a nice one. So I'm going to kind of step away, let him have a bite to eat, if you will, and then I'll go do it again in a second, because that one was a good try. So you could stick your fingers in his mouth, but just do something. You can walk in a circle, or you can quit right there. If your horse gets it first day, if they've never done it, they may not come to it that quickly. But if you get a good try, quit for the day, go do something else, ride the horse, come back and do it again later. Little bits do more than long sessions. Oh, nice. Good. So I'm going to mark my spot and walk them in a circle. Good. So remember, now that he does this well, then you can just do it every time you put the halter on, every time you take the halter off, every time you put the bridle on, every time you take the bridle off. So we'd say, put your head down, good boy. So let's go ahead and simulate this with the halter. You can tell he obviously knows how to do this already, so he keeps his head down there, and this is where I want them when I take that halter off. So when I take this halter off, he's doing it before I can ask, I'm going to put some pressure here and say, lower your head. And I don't take the bridle or the halter off until he lowers his head, until he's in the act of lowering his head. I never like a horse turning his head away from me or raising his head up when he gets a halter. So he already knows this. So I'm going to make him raise his head. Do the wrong thing, horse. Now I'm going to put this in front of him, and I'm going to look for him. Okay, well, we have to laugh at this one because we just taught him how to take the bit. So he technically took the bit. Good job, buddy. All right. All right, let's try that again. We're putting a halter on. So we'll put his head down for the halter. Don't get it in his mouth. And we put it on. Good boy. And then when we take it off, same thing. If I was turning him out or was in his stall, I would put some pressure, wait for, even though his head's low, we'll wait for him to lower it a little bit, and then I take it off. So even though he wasn't very high, I still want to, teach him, lower your head, the halter comes off. Raise your head, the halter doesn't come off, or the bridle. Okay, same thing. I like to put that halter in front of him, and I would like for them to kind of scoop his own nose in there without eating it. Okay, we created a monster. Maybe I should just quit there, huh? Okay, so I'll put the halter in front of him, ask him to lower his nose, his head, and capture his nose. He took his nose away from me a little bit there, so I'm going to draw it back towards me. I always want to teach them that they can bring their nose towards me. I mean, not push me around, but I don't want to halter them with their nose way over there or bridle them. Good, now we're going to take it off. So we're going to say lower your head. Good job. Now I don't care if he gets a bite to eat there. Obviously, in real life, you're not going to be taking the halter on and off this many times. You'll just be practicing lowering your head. But this is a real life practical way to use the cue, lower your head, is the haltering and the bridling. So there we go. So I was a little too far back there and didn't notice. So I had to change. I was kind of back here. And so remember, it's right up here beside that forelock. What is that dog doing? So just practice this every day. When you put the halter on, when you put the halter, take the halter off, when you put the bridle on, and when you take the bridle off, and that will be plenty. When you're first teaching this, just spend a couple minutes every day when you go get him in the stall, ask him to lower his head a couple times, get him to where you can just put your hand there and he lowers it. Good job. And after he's pretty good like that, then go ahead and start doing it every time you halter him and bridle them, and there's your practice.